Okay. So good afternoon, and today we shall be speaking on another part of the second sex. So far we have gone through. So far we have discussed about the second sex. It is actually a kind of an assertion, a sort of a critique of the society of the man and the woman binary on the part of Simone de Beauvoir. Now, Simone de Beauvoir, what she is actually trying to draw in front of us is that continuous perpetuation of the male on the female, and that the narrative of the patriarchal oppression that she is trying to elaborate in so many different ways. Now, the first part of the second sex, of which partially we have decided so far, we have talked so far on. So it is basically in the three parts that we said the other day: destiny, history, and myths. So the destiny, history, and myths in these three separate sections, the first part of the second sex, it deals primarily with the different social and the cultural conditions through which women are psychologically, physically uh, subordinated, and they are basically oppressed in different ways. Now, before we go for today's particular section that we call myth and reality, I think I should go touch through, Gotlin, Landgren Gotlin's comment that Beauvoir continuously positions woman as other, and she talks a lot about the different notions of otherness also. But this otherness, we should not mix up with the master slave conflict of Hegel, as it is generally seen that the male is the master and the woman as the slave. We should not think in that particular way. Now, the kind of dialectic in between master and the slave that uh, Ludgren Gotlin is trying to focus here in that particular case, that this is basically in between the men, okay? The master and the slave conflict, the master and the slave dialectic is basically can be applied the kind of self and the other. This division can be applied among the men only. Women should not be considered in that dialectic. So what is the another context in which that dialectic of women should be placed? Now, according to the critic, the opinion is that it is a kind of a non-dialectic relationship that we should think always. It is the non-dialectic relationship. So what is the non-dialectic relationship that she is talking about? So it is all about the self and the absolute other. Now, Gotlin is trying to point out that it is in between the self is the man and the absolute other is the woman. So it is the new kind of situation that she would like to situate as she is trying to interpret Simone de Beauvoir here in the second sex, that the position of woman is absolute other. It is between the men and the women, a kind of a relationship that is far deeper than the master slave dialectic of Hegel. So, women is not merely other, women is the absolute other, and this absolute actually playing in such a way in our society that women in all positions are pressed in a so many other technical ends, just like end, emotional end, domestic end, and also the other social bonds. So this is how women has they have several other subordinations, being the absolute other. So Beauvoir is trying place as far different than the man-slave dialectic. Now, if I would, so the myth is the very common notions that is very much in practice in the society. Now, Beauvoir primarily focuses, while she is talking about myth, this is that existential predicament that every woman experiences, an anguished recognition, and at the same time this absolute other woman is in a kind of a juncture that she is not having the kind of freedom that is desired for her. So not having the desired freedom, an existential woman as absolute other is always in a kind of a fluctuation. Now, in this particular section, she will be referring to so many male mention that in their writings we can find references of this feminine crisis, and that woman as absolute other, and the kind of social crisis through which they are projected. Now, those writers are basically Henry de Montherlant, D.H. Lawrence, and Paul Claudel, André Breton, and Stendhal. It is quite interesting that apart from all the writers, it is Stendhal's writing, we find that there is a kind of a, she is locating a kind of an essence that light primarily. So this section will primarily be focusing on the social position of women, and once again the popular myth, once again the popular notion primarily, that notion which is basically very much effectively in practice. Now, how is that particular section begins? How does it begin with? Now, it begins with playing the myth of woman, and she is referring at the very beginning of the section. I shall be going to the text directly very soon, that the myth of woman plays a very significant role in literature. And it is a very common practice that myth of woman is always there, and the myth of woman is any different way. It has so many connections to literature in general. So I am going to the text. The portion myth and reality part in literature. But what is its importance in the question that Beauvoir is trying to emphasize in this particular portion? Now, very soon she will be talking about different kinds of myths, and these different kinds of myths are always there. Knowingly or unknowingly, those myths are in practice for a long, traditional journey that we find those myths are in vogue. This one, the myth of woman, sublimating an immutable aspect of human condition. Now, is oblivious of that all characters, all creatures, I mean the male and the female, such division that both are same, society is not generally in a position to look in that way. Rather, they are in a knack or a habit to make some divisions. The division of humanity that Simone de Beauvoir is saying here. Division of humanity in two classes of individuals. Static myth. This is something that is there, and this is basically a kind of a division of humanity that is painful, no doubt, but somehow we have no choice. It is there. It is a kind of a static myth that Beauvoir is referring. It projects in the realm of Platonic ideas a reality that is directly experienced or is conceptualized on a basis of experience. In place of fact, value, significance, knowledge, empirical law, it substitutes a transcendental idea, timeless, unchangeable, necessary. Now, it is something that remains unchangeable. It is something that has a kind of a timeless presence. So it is fixed in the mind of the society for such a long period that there is no choice. There is no immediate choice. This idea is indisputable. You cannot argue, because somehow people have been in a kind of a process of a thinking like this. It is beyond the given. It is endowed with absolute truth. People have started believing in this against the dispersed, contingent, multiple existence of actual women. So the idea of women is dispersed. Multiple existences of actual women. Mythical thought opposes the eternal feminine. So this idea of myth is so cemented and so fixed, it devoids of the particular identity called, here a particular term that Simone de Beauvoir is using, eternal feminine. Now, eternal feminine is that ideal concept of feminine, unique and changeless. If the definition provided for the concept is contradicted by the behavior of flesh and blood women, it is later who are wrong. We are told not that femininity is a false entity. Women concerned are not feminine. Facts of experience are important against myth. So look, the reality and the myth, there is always a clash. Now think of the way society in general, in a kind of a practice of looking at the goddess. Now the way goddesses are revered, in reality, women don't get that kind of respect in our daily life. So somehow the ideal and the real, there is a kind of a huge difference. That kind of ideal, eternal feminine conditions and the reality makes such a difference. It creates the everyday it creates the how are the women looked at in our daily life. It is quite true, Beauvoir is that women is other than men. Beauvoir is admitting that it is quite true, woman is other than man. And sameness. What is alterity? Alterity is not being the same kind of entity. So we have a particular term called alter ego. When someone is alter ego, that means he or she is your, very another self. But alterity is directly felt in desire, the embrace, love, but the real relation is one of reciprocity. As such, it gives rise to authentic drama through eroticism, love, friendship, their alternatives, deception, hate, rivalry. Relation is a struggle between conscious beings, each of whom wishes to be essential. So to pose woman is pose the absolute other that we were talking about before starting this particular section. Without reciprocity, denying against all experience that she is a subject, a fellow human being. So somehow, because of this very position, that she is trying to say once again the absolute other position of woman, all the kind of opportunities, all the kind of rights that a woman should have, she is basically devoid of all those things. So gradually, there will be a kind of a very interesting kind of a reference that she will be talking about, the eternal feminine more and more. So we shall be going there very soon. Group symbols and social types, Beauvoir will be talking later. So what are the group symbols and the social types that she would like to referring at? Generally defined by means of antonyms in pair. So whenever it talks, the decision, the condition of discussion about women comes, there is a kind of a condition of antonyms, a differences always. Ambivalence will seem to be an intrinsic quality of the eternal family. Saintly mother has for correlative the cruel stepmother. The angelic young girl has the perverse virgin. It will be said sometimes that mother equals life, sometimes that mother equals death. Look how. So mother equals life, if this is one kind of a notion that we have in the society, on the very opposite we have the another kind of notion that is in practice, mother equals death. That way every virgin is pure spirit or flesh dedicated to the devil. So in one hand, we often impose the idea of, purity on a young woman, virgin, and on the other hand, we have also in practice to implant the idea of devil at the very same time. So this is how society is actually talking a lot about this. And then as we go more and more to the text of this particular section, myth and reality, we find Beauvoir to declare that very critical term, technical term. This one is, but to say woman is flesh, to say that the flesh is night and death, or that it is the splendor of the cosmos, abundant terrestrial truth and soar into an empty sky. Man also is flesh for woman. So when from the angle of the male, women are basically considered flesh. So quite similar way, from the perspective of the female, males are also nothing but flesh. Man also is flesh for woman. Woman is not merely a carnal object. That is the very common notion, the common myth that society still is of the opinion of. That she actually is trying to, keep this idea in the mind that woman is basically not merely a carnal object. And the flesh is clothed in special significance for each person and in each experience. It is quite true that woman, like man, is being rooted in nature. This is the suggestions, these are the solutions that Beauvoir is trying to offer here in this particular section. In both cases, Beauvoir is actually trying to make a kind of a equilibrium, a kind of a balance that is very necessary. So woman, like man, is being rooted in nature. She is more enslaved to the species than is the male. So when both are rooted to nature, but somehow the social condition is in such a manner, it is conditioned, she is found more enslaved than the male. Her animality is more manifest, but in her as in him, the given traits are taken on through the fact of experience. She belongs to the human realm that we have started to forget. To assimilate her to nature is simply to act from prejudice. So that she is also a human being, she has also a very her own personal individual identity that she has, we have started forgetting that particular existence of woman that she would like to remind us. For few myths have been more advantageous to the ruling caste than the myth of woman. It justifies all privileges and even authorizes their abuse. Men need not bother themselves with alleviating the pain and the burdens that physiologically are women's lot. They are intended by nature. Men use them as a pretext for increasing the misery of the feminine lot still further. For instance, by refusing to grant to woman any right to sexual pleasure, by making her work like a beast of burden. So look, this is how, these are the myths, these are the common notions, that the women are refused to give the right to sexual pleasure, and by making her only a beast of burden. She is someone who will only go on protecting the other, the man's, desire and their choices. But she has also her own kind of desire that probably society has never wanted to understand. So if you read more apart from Simone de Beauvoir and the present condition of government, law, and several other articles regarding this, that women, and because of the domestic violences, of course, now women are also given right to of those particular psychic and the aesthetic and the cultural rights and the social rights that the woman should have. Now, the kind of questions that Beauvoir is raising here are all relevant. Gradually, society is getting changed, and women are there in a position to, they have started receiving the kind of rights they really need to have for so long. Now, with all the myths that is very prevalent in the society, now Beauvoir will go on describing a different sort of myth now. And the myth is the feminine mystery. Okay? Feminine mystery is something that has to be discussed right now. It has numerous advantages, as Beauvoir is saying. And first of all, it permits an easy explanation all that appears inexplicable. The man who does not understand a woman is happy to substitute an objective resistance for a subjective deficiency of mind. Instead of admitting his ignorance, he perceives the presence of a mystery outside himself, an alibi. So now it is very, very, very beautiful lines, very significant lines, that Beauvoir is saying that a man is actually incapable of understanding the demands of a woman. That the woman is not happy, the man is in most cases are incapable of understanding this. It is such a kind of a quote-unquote deficiency that he would never admit. He doesn't admit that it is a kind of a deficiency that he is having. Rather, it is a kind of a mystery as it is generally thought of, as it is generally understood. She goes on. And then very soon, Beauvoir will quote Maeterlinck. What is the quote of Maeterlinck that she will refer to here? That woman, in a sense, mysterious. Mysterious as is all the world. So according to the whole world, woman is basically mysterious. But why is she mysterious? You, the male, you have never ever attempted, try to understand her. If you could have in that position to understand her properly, then there should not be any kind of mystery at all. It is your incapacity, it is your inability to understand her for that reason, you now categorize woman as mysterious. That's something who cannot be understood, who is beyond one's capacity and knowledge. Now, Beauvoir explains in this very significant portion, each is subject only for himself. Each can grasp in an immanence only himself, alone. From this point of view, the other is always a mystery. You know, when you always talk about yourself, when you think of your own choices, own desires always, she is talking about the males here. Because males are too much obsessed, too much possessed for their own choices, likes and desires. So what is interesting, the other will always be, presented as you think always, that other is always be mysterious, because you have no choice, you have no attempt at all what the other is actually trying to see, what they are trying to have, what are their choices, what are their words, because you have no time to understand them. To men's eyes, the opacity of the self-knowledge, of the poor soul is denser the other who is feminine. Men are unable to penetrate her. So, men are unable to penetrate her, as Beauvoir is saying. So, men are actually unable to decipher. Men are actually incapable of, relieving the knot that is very much there to understand the compatriot, the fellow human being whom we call woman, what are they actually trying to think. So they are unable to penetrate her special experience through any working of sympathy. Since men are not at all sympathized with the women, so here is the problem. Here comes the kind of difficulties, and so the notion of mystery in general. They are condemned to ignorance of the quality of woman's erotic pleasure, that the erotic pleasure also can be experienced by a woman, but the male never ever tries to admit that. They only think of themselves. The discomfort of menstruation, the pains of childbirth, a male can hardly experience. Even if it is a cesarean baby nowadays, it is more harmful than having a normal baby. But in all the cases, the kind of pain that a mother experiences while giving a baby, giving birth to a baby, so it is a kind of a very difficult, very painful event, experience that a male partner can only, imagine of. He will never be of that kind of a, experience of the pain, the suffering, the physical, mental trauma before, during, and after the birth of the baby. So, it is very impossible to understand on the part of a male. And the truth is that there is mystery on both sides. Look, it is something, if we would like to criticize Beauvoir here, that Beauvoir is trying to make a kind of a balanced society, she all the time speaks of a kind of a both male and the female, both the man and the woman, they are tuned to nature. Both are human beings, but somehow one is in no way, they try to understand the other. So here creates the problem. But actually, now Beauvoir is saying the truth is that there is mystery on both sides. As the other, who is of masculine sex, every man also has within him a presence, an inner self impenetrable to woman. Now, it is also true that Beauvoir is not biased we cannot say Beauvoir is biased, that Beauvoir is saying only of her own, of the female choices, the female identities always. On the other hand, Beauvoir is saying that on the part of the woman, it is also found that they cannot understand what is going on on the part of the males. So there is something, an inner self, where a woman cannot hit at all. You know, she is unable to understand what is going on inside that inner self of a male. She, in turn, is in ignorance of the male's erotic feelings. Probably she is also in no way possible. She is also incapable of that kind of ignorant of the male's erotic feelings. So, in accordance with the universal rule, Beauvoir is saying, the categories in which men think of the world are established from their point of view. So everyone has their own point of view. They misconceive reciprocity here as everywhere. A mystery for man, woman is considered to be mysterious in essence. So on both sides, we find a sort of mystery is working. Okay. So these are some of the things. And now regarding the mystery of woman, after few sections, few portions of this particular chapter, Beauvoir has some very straightforward statement that to say that woman is mystery is to say not that she is silent, but that her language is not understood. Very remarkable comment, I must say. When you say that woman is nothing but mystery, it doesn't mean she is silent. She is mysterious only because she keeps her mouth shut. She doesn't communicate. She doesn't say anything. She is mysterious only because her language is not understood. She is there but hidden behind veils. She exists beyond these uncertain appearances. So what is she? Now Beauvoir is there to explain that identity of a woman. What is she? What is a woman? Angel? Demon? As you often think of. In the Victorian period, women are often found that they are the angels at home. Can you imagine? In Victorian England, women were basically considered angel at home. And several texts will support that how women were basically those considered those objects just like angel with a particular dress that her legs will be covered and will not be seen at all from outside. When she will walk on the floor, so it seems that she is floating like an angel. So that was that, Victorian position of the Victorian woman. So this angel, this or if the condition is totally different, she may often be blessed just like a demon. Okay. So you often categorize her as an angel. You often categorize her as a demon, one inspired. She is that, goddess who can inspire us for, writing creativity, go for creativity, go for creative processes, or an actress. So it may be supposed either that there are answers to the questions which are impossible to discover, and to rather that no answer is adequate because the fundamental ambiguity marks the feminine being, and perhaps in her heart she is even for herself quite indefinable. So this is the myth that she is basically considered indefinable, or probably on the part of woman too. And if we would like to interpret this particular sentence or statement of Beauvoir every human being is in that sense indefinable. So no one can define oneself. Now the best result can only be there when we mutually come together, when we mutually try to communicate with other, when we sympathize for one for the other, then only with mutual respect, love, affection, there can have a kind of a mutual existence. No one can feel existential crisis anymore. So it is the mutual responsibility. It is not the responsibility of one part. This is not a kind of a fight for right. But it is sorry to say that people had to fight for. And this text, this is a kind of a statement that proves that yes, women have to fight for their own rights, fight for vote, fight for education, for economic freedom, intellectual freedom, and social freedom. Beauvoir very minutely, perfectly of, digging up all those words, statements, and ideas here regarding myth and reality, which before her were not in that sense elaborately discussed, elaborately highlighted, and pointed out. So that much we had a discussion for today. And so far, that's all for today that we had to discuss regarding the myth and the reality that Beauvoir had to say in a tiny portion of the second sex. Thank you so much for your patient listening.